Hi folks and welcome back. Now today we're going to take a look at Armoured Warfare and see if it's still a game worth playing in 2018. Armoured Warfare is a game of modern armoured fighting vehicles and you can download it and play it for free from the link down in the description. Now today's video is kindly sponsored by my.com, the publishers of Armoured Warfare. But I have played Armoured Warfare quite a bit in the past and featured games and video footage on this channel. It's a game that I liked when it first came out and I'm more than happy to endorse it. If you're into tank warfare, especially modern vehicles, then there's no reason not to download it and try it out. It is free after all. So what exactly is Armoured Warfare? Well, the easiest way to describe it would be to say it's like World of Tanks, which I'm sure any of you watching this channel will be familiar with, but with more modern fighting vehicles. Tanks like the Abrams, the Chieftain, the Challengers, the Leopards, and many, many more. Plus, it's got wheeled vehicles which do control quite differently. And it's also got vehicles armed with lots of autocannons and anti-tank guided missiles. Yes, folks, you can launch missiles and guide them into your target with the mouse. It basically features all aspects of modern fighting vehicles and even some slightly futuristic tanks where they might take the Challenger and the Abrams and the Leopards if technology ever allows you to go. Now, I know what some people are going to ask straight away as soon as I mentioned that other tank warfare game that you're probably very familiar with. Does it have issues with premium ammunition or artillery? Because I know those are big issues for some of you guys. Well, premium ammunition, no. The tanks feature different ammunition types, but there isn't one type necessarily better than all the others. For example, you've got your four main ammunition types. There's your armour piercing, which also consists of things like APCR, armour piercing, composite rigid, and a load of more modern takes on that. Then you've got your heat ammo, your high explosive anti-tank, which also includes guided missiles. They are a form of heat ammunition. They just look and work a little bit differently. And of course you've got high explosive. Now each type of round is more effective in certain situations. Some have more penetration but less damage. Some have more penetration and more damage. But here's the thing, they're only effective against certain types of armour. And when we're talking about types of armour, it's not just all like rolled steel armour, or modern vehicles have a lot more advanced composites types of armour and explosive reactive armour, which were designed to defeat some of the new types of rounds that were being invented, like your heat and your anti-tank guided missiles and well, things like that. So now it's a case of choosing the right ammunition for the right target. And therein lies quite a bit of the skill in the game. It's been able to identify your target and the type of armour it will have on, and then load the correct ammunition if your tank has a choice of ammunition types to deal with it. So yeah, you do of course, when you're trying to fight, you have a little armour penetration indicator which will help you find weak spots on the tank, and hint, it's often the side armour that's often a weak spot. But yeah, a lot of the skill in the game is going to be recognising tanks and knowing what type of armour it's likely to have and how best to defeat it. So no, there isn't one type of ammunition that's better than all the rest. It's a case of knowing which to use in the right situation. And that's good because it gives you the tactical choice on the battlefield. And the other question, of course, that some of you will be asking, is artillery in the game? Well, yes, artillery is in the game, but wait, it can only be played in the PvE mode. Yes, folks, Armoured Warfare, if you're not familiar with the game at all, has a PvE mode, player versus environment, where you and 4 other players can team up, or, randoms. You can just be put in a queue and find some random people to game with, take on the computer-controlled forces of darkness or whatever they are. There's actually quite a good story mode, and they've just recently released the Caribbean Crisis mode into this as well, which continues the story arc throughout the game. But I'll talk more about the game modes in just a moment. So artillery is not an issue in player versus player combat in this. It is just a feature. You can play artillery pieces if you want in the PvE mode. Personally, I tried, and the maps that I was playing them on, or the missions I'd selected, I don't think I'd pick the right tank for it, but I've been told by the people who've played it in the past that it can be useful, it can be good support for the team. So I mentioned different game modes that you can play in this. Well, to list them briefly, we've got player versus player, we've got global operations, which are a type of player versus player mixed with PvE. There's also just the good old PvE storyline missions, which you can just chill out with friends in, and then you can make custom matches, a bit like team battles, and there's also a tutorial mode where you can just go in to learn more aspects of the game. Let's look at each one in a little bit more detail. The player versus player mode, well, you've got up to 15 versus 15 standard battles where you'll join a queue and you'll be thrown in with up to 14 other players and then 15 on the enemy team to fight it out. There is, of course, tier and matchmaking spread, as there are in all these sort of games, and random maps to fight over. But it's basically capture the enemy base, destroy all the enemy tanks, or fight over the one joint base to try and take. Now, if you happen to be queued up in a tier of tank that there aren't a huge amount of people queuing up for, the matchmaker will give time to get as many people as possible, and then it'll throw you into a game with less than 15 players per side. So don't think you'll be stuck waiting forever for a game if you're playing an unpopular tier. Now, this was something I did find. I'm playing on the EU server, and maybe it's the time of day I've been playing on, I'm not sure, but quite often the teams would not be 15 aside. It would be sometimes as low as 4 aside or 3 aside if they really were just maybe the low tiers or something like that. In the mid tiers between 7, 8, 9, I found that there was more likely to get filled up and more people playing those tiers, and you got into a game pretty good. But the fact that the matchmaker will give you a game without waiting for it to fill up if there's just not enough players around, well, I think that's a good thing. Sometimes the maps can maybe be a little bit empty with less players in, but there are smaller maps as well. They're not all the full-size maps, and it'll give you a skirmish game, which is a cut-down version of some of the maps as well. So it kind of works around you, but it would be nice if there was more players in this, or, well, I think more players playing PvP. I think where a lot of the player base comes into this is in the PvE mode, which of course is a separate queue. I never had any trouble finding a team at any tier for the PvE mode. Now, the PvE mode works a little bit differently. You can choose your difficulty level from simple up to insane difficulty, and I tried playing the insane difficulty with a selection of tier 10 tanks, and they were tough. There were a lot of enemies, a lot of firepower coming back in, and they were a real challenge, folks. And I don't think we actually won any of those. But then I am a little rusty at this game, I have to admit. But I think the PvE missions are where people really like Armoured Warfare. It's not going to be for everyone if you want the chaos and adrenaline of the PvP battles. PvE mode is quite different. It's more like chilled out gaming with friends, and you don't have to take friends with you. You can team up, or you can just go in with a queue and get put in with random other players. But you have to work together, clearing a series of objectives on the map that you're given, often capturing points, often blowing up resources that the computer-controlled team will have, fuel trucks, stuff like that, and then getting to an exit point on the map. And the missions do tie together with a bit of a story as well. This is a part of the game that Armoured Warfare pulls off really, really well if you're into this sort of thing, and you will like it. It's chilled out, it's relaxed, and you never feel like things are really against you. Well, they're not against you having fun, let me put it that way. You can quite enjoy this, and there is plenty of challenge to be had there. Now, we've also got the choice of Global Operations, which is another well, it's a mix of PvP and PvE. Let me explain. You see, you play this on quite large battlefields, and your team, matched up against an enemy team of players, of course, fights for control of certain points around the map. There are points that will give you resources, there are points that will repair your tank, there are points that you can fight over and control that will allow you to call in airstrikes on the enemy team. A couple of these I've played are pretty good fun, and like any other aspect of the game, it's just a case of learning the maps and learning the tanks that you play and take out on those maps as well. It's definitely a different aspect. It kind of combines a bit of PvE and PvP, which is a good thing, and overall it seems to be a pretty good game mode. I only played a few of them, but I quite liked what I saw. And one thing I did notice about this is that the players in chat, well, they tended to be giving constructive advice, which was handy for me because I was pretty new to all this. And they were telling us where to go, where to control first. I'm not saying they were necessarily correct, but it was good for someone like myself who just needed a few pointers to get into the right positions and then start duking it out with the enemy. So those are the 3 game modes, and then of course you've got custom matches, which you can form team battles and invite people in, make them either public or private, and you can play through some tutorials to get a better feel for the game, learn some of the positions and ammunition types for the tanks, and just get used to the controls. Now, I've mentioned a few of the vehicle types. You do, of course, have your main battle tanks and light tanks and wheeled vehicles and armoured fighting vehicles and infantry fighting vehicles. You've got all sorts of things here. It's pretty much what you'd expect to see in a modern mechanised army. But one thing that is interesting about the game is that you don't unlock the tanks by nation. You get them from dealers. Yeah, the game isn't about pitching one nation against all the other nations and trying to balance one nation against other nations either. You see, you unlock your tanks through dealers, and you just buy a tank from a dealer and you can research modules in it and upgrade just as you can in other well-known tank games. But when you come to unlock the next tank, it might not be from the same nation. It's just what that dealer is offering you next in the tree. But it's just another way of building out tech trees. It really doesn't make that big a difference, and you can check out the tech trees and see which tanks you want to progress towards and aim for and work down. It works pretty much as you'd expect. You go into games, well, you can earn experience and credits both in player versus player and global operations and player versus environment matches, so you can play whichever method you like, and you can unlock the modules for your tanks through XP, and you can earn credits which you use to buy equipment and of course move on to buy new tanks with. Oh, speaking of equipment, as you might expect, you can equip all your vehicles with extra equipment to improve their abilities, things that will make them aim quicker, things that will make them reload faster, stuff that will send more power to the engines, increase turret traverse, increase your view range, all sorts of options to choose from in there, so you can kit out each vehicle just as you like to play it, and your crews develop skills as well as you build experience with them. Pretty standard stuff, very simple to get your head around. And at this point, it's probably a good time to jump in and see me playing some action live, playing in the American Tier 8 Abrams M1A2. Okay, we've got a full-on 15 versus 15 battle here. I have noticed when playing that the matchmaker will often throw you in smaller games. I'm not sure if that's just to change things up a bit, or if it's just if there's not as many players in the queue for the tier that you're playing, maybe to save you waiting, it just makes a smaller battle. Pretty useful if that's the case. But this is full 15 versus 15. It's tier 8. There's a few tier 7s in, but I'm playing in the tier 8 American M1A2 Abrams main battle tank. So I think pretty much the rules are that don't go anywhere alone, use cover as well as possible, be cautious, be careful, go hull down wherever you can. Pretty standard stuff for tank warfare, really. Anyway, a lot of it's going to be about map control and taking the more important positions. Let's see where we can go up here. Follow these two guys. They seem to know where they're going. I still have a lot to learn about the maps in this game. A lot of them look pretty familiar from when I played a year or two ago, though, which is kind of cool. Ooh, one guy over there, two guys over there. I get shots on them from around this corner. Can't see.
Identify.
Ooh, can see. Flashed up. Very briefly. I've got very good shots on these guys. Oh, you need to reverse a bit. We got a module damage anyway. I haven't been spotted, which is kind of cool. Oh yes, folks, you do get notified if you've been spotted. You're not just relying on some skill to pick up for that. So far I'm good. See, some guys on my team are doing the spotting for me, so I don't have to worry about it. He's taken out. He's in cover. I want to go in. Our team are pushing up quite well here. Type 99. What is a Type 99? Coming through. Make way. We don't have time. Well, I'll track the guy. I have a lower plate shot there. It's not very good. It doesn't say it's going to go through. Especially when the guy drives off out the way. No pen. What you have to watch for on this is your side armor. That side armor is often where it's weakest. And angling and side scraping isn't necessarily the best thing to do. Can't see those guys. Come on, let's just pile in. I like piling. I think it's a valid tactic.
Identify target.
I'm going to be able to see something down there now, surely. No? Oh, a little freeze up there. What's down there? Nothing? We are winning this. I don't feel like I've been in the thick of the combat so far. There's a T90 round here. Ooh, he's just fired then. No, I don't seem to be able to get a good angling shot on this guy. Right, let's get around behind him. Now we can. Now you for it, son. Can I get the tank around? He's doomed. Doomed! Okay, push on. There's a lot of these vehicles, especially the well-armoured tanks. Really hard to damage from the front. It's a case of knowing the weak spots and knowing your ammunition types. Different armour is more protective or more vulnerable against different ammunition types, like your heat and your AP and APCR. A lot to learn in this game, folks. It's not just a case of pressing a button to get premium ammunition, which is better at everything. Gotta know your stuff. I like that. We got a kill. Cool, I'll take that. Well, I think this has been a bit of a ruffle stomp. Through the snow. Where's this last guy? Just take a position of high ground. Ah, I couldn't get the shot off in time. So let's just talk very briefly about the economy of Armoured Warfare. I mentioned, of course, earlier that it was a free-to-play game, and that is true. You can download it, you can play it for free, you can grind through the tanks and play the battles, and you can go an awful long way with it without spending any money whatsoever. But what if you do want to spend some money? What if you want to progress a bit faster? Well, they have a shop where you can buy premium tanks and you can spend some money and get a premium account, which won't make you any more dangerous in battle, but it will earn you more credits and experience from those battles, so you can progress a little bit quicker. It's more like paying to progress quicker rather than paying to win. You can actually spend a little bit of money on standard tanks as well from the dealers to actually make that tank earn you more rewards in battle, if you so wish, if you find one that you particularly like or want to get through a bit quicker. So to sum up, what are the pros and cons of Armoured Warfare? Well, I'm going to go through the cons first, and the one that kind of jumped out to me at the moment was that the servers, at least on the EU server where I was playing these battles, they seemed a little quiet, especially in player versus player. Most of the games I got into weren't full 15 versus 15 games, although some were. Now this might be just the time of day I happen to be playing. And of course it does depend on the tier of tanks that you are playing to get into those games as well. But the matchmaking does deal with that, and it will put you into smaller skirmish games if there aren't enough people in the queue to make a full game, which is actually a decent feature. You're not left hanging in the queue all night long. And I think that the PvP queues were just a bit quiet because a lot of people are playing the PvE mode, and I would definitely give that a go. I think the graphics of the game could maybe benefit from a little bit of a refresh and an upgrade, but they are quite functional, and it is the art style that they've gone for. The maps look pretty good with the scenery and terrain, so not too much to complain about there really. Now for the pros of the game, and the big one, and this is something that I always like to see, it's free to play, which means that there is absolutely no loss to you from just giving it a try out other than your time. Nothing worse than buying a game and then finding that it's not for you. Well, if it's free to play or to trial, then you can jump into it for free, give it a try out. Definitely worth doing. If you like tank games, this is something a little bit different to what you might have played before. There's a very nice range of vehicles in the game, so there's something for everyone. There is artillery to play if you don't mind playing in the PvE only modes, but there's different tanks with lots of different features, different weapon types, lots to learn there. Something for everyone, I think, and you can customize the vehicles to play just as you like to play. And the other thing I really like about Armoured Warfare is the variety of game modes that it brings. You've got player versus player, player versus environment, and you've got global operations, which is kind of a little bit in the middle. But the global operations in particular gives you something to fight for on the map. You're not just there to wipe out the enemy team. There's various points in the map that are actually worth controlling and fighting over that will benefit your team greatly and hinder the enemy team's progress. Makes it a little bit more tactical, a little bit more strategic to think about where you're going and not just to give up huge sections of the map thinking that you can still just fight it out with the enemy. And of course, the standard PvE missions mode, the storyline mode, that is really nice. It's really nice to play any game co-op. If you watched my videos before, you'll know that I like multiplayer co-op games. I love working as part of a group and a team to overcome challenges that the computer is going to throw at you. And one good aspect of the PvE mode is that you don't need to play your stock tanks. In player versus player mode, you can go into PvE modes and unlock all the experience you need to get the top modules and everything else before you go and engage with that tank against enemy players in a battle somewhere. So overall, if you haven't tried Armoured Warfare before but you like tank games, then go and give this a try. There's a link in the description, you can download it. It definitely offers something different. It might not be for everyone, but as it's free, there's nothing to lose apart from a little bit of time from just giving it a go. Alright folks, that's it for today. Thanks very much for watching. Hope you found the video interesting. Let me know your thoughts on the game if you've tried Armoured Warfare. And of course, if you're not too keen on it, let me know that as well, and let me know why you don't want to play it. Alright, thanks again folks, and I'll catch you on the next one.